Hello, this is Jeff Johnston, host of the Living Undeterred podcast. And once again, I have a great guest. I'm super excited to speak with Will Ramsey from Miamisburg, Ohio. I just met Will, literally within a couple months ago. And the velocity of social media is that you can meet some amazing people and some incredible stories in a very short amount of time. So, really excited to hear about Will's story, kind of turn the spotlight on him. That's the wonder of doing the Living Undeterred podcast is it's so not about me, it's about we, it's about our guests. So with that, Will, thanks for being on the podcast tonight, and I look forward to our conversation.
Absolutely, Jeff. Appreciate you having me on. It's been an interesting, let's see, it's going to be 27 months. It's been an interesting 27 months, without a doubt. Without a
Yeah, and
doubt.
I see like you like me got pulled into this vortex of being on podcasts and being interviewed, and
Right.
the advice I can give you as a friend and as an ally, because I've got 6 years now doing this, is you got to be a little careful because it's easy to get addicted to it. It is. And I even wrote a blog called My Vulnerability to Addiction because I was just so focused on making sure I continued his story. And then I finally realized I don't want to do it at my demise. So, it looks like you're doing great. For 20 something months of being what you've been dealt with, which we're going to talk about to our guests. I admire your strength, man. What you are doing is rare. Most people that go through what you and I have been through, they don't come out of it. It's literally a death sentence. And, you and I are trying to stop that cycle. And
Right.
that's what motivates us to do these type of things. So why don't you we'll go back, we'll step way back and talk about, maybe we'll start with that day. How about we start with what happened, and then we'll talk a little bit before, and then we'll talk about after and kind of what you're doing now. But let's go back to the day that this event happened that changed your life.
So, February 10th, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a car guy, but was in the car business for 25 years. And so I was at the dealership. I was new car manager, and I got a message on my phone from uh, Brock's girlfriend at the time, and
Brock's your son.
yeah,
Yep.
Brock Ramsey, he's my son,
Yep.
and I got a message from his girlfriend, and she reached out and she said, "Hey, I haven't heard from Brock since 10 o'clock last night. I contacted the motel he was staying in." So just to give you a little background, Brock was a recovering addict. He'd been through some different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, he was actually working for a company that was hiring recovering addicts, and
Oh,
they were doing work on the railroad. So they were checking tracks, and so he was traveling around different places in the state of Ohio and Kentucky, and didn't get too far away from Ohio. It was usually Kentucky and Indiana, and I think maybe a little bit of Pennsylvania, but not a whole
okay.
lot. And so what they did is they sent him, unfortunately, they sent him to an area that he was very familiar with, which was Wapakoneta, Ohio.
Okay.
That's where he first got addicted. That's where
Hmm.
unfortunately, his mother got him addicted to pills when he was 14 years old.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
yeah, so they sent him back to that area. And, obviously he had to do his job. So they were obviously hoping that there wouldn't be an issue. What I had not known is that Brock had a relapse in December.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
so they sent him to that area. He had already relapsed. So he
How
was,
long is you? How long was he in recovery before the relapse?
I want to say he'd been in recovery. Well, he'd been in and out of recovery, but at that point he had been clean over a year, and
Okay.
had been out of recovery for over a year, had went through recovery, um, I want to say for about a year.
Okay.
He'd went through a recovery program in Middletown, Ohio, called Hope House, and we
Okay. Yeah.
actually we actually donated to them at his funeral because they had helped him through his recovery. But anyway, so that day she'd given me a message and said, "Hey, can you reach out? I have this police officer's phone number." So, and she said they're doing a death investigation.
Hmm. Wow. Do you
Yeah,
have that pit feeling in your stomach?
I it, it I don't know how to describe it. It was nervous anticipation, already knowing what the answer was going to be, but
Mhm.
but praying to God I was wrong.
Right, right,
Does that make
right.
sense? Just
Yeah,
praying to God I was
absolutely,
wrong.
absolutely.
And so I called the police officer and told him who I was. Said, "Hey, this is William Ramsey." I gave my formal name. This is William Ramsey. I'm calling in regards. My understanding is you're doing a death investigation,
Hmm,
and I'm over an hour away, and I can't get there right away. So could you please tell me what's going on? I'm looking for my son, Brock. And he said, "Well, we are doing an investigation, sir." He said, um, "What was your name again?" And I told him my name. He said, "Well, what is your address?" So I gave him my address, and
hmm,
he said, "Mr. Ramsey, I'm sorry to inform you that your son has passed."
hmm,
And so that was 2 o'clock in the
hmm,
afternoon on February 11th, 2020, and I remember
mhm.
it like it was yesterday.
Right.
I can replay that scene over and over again.
Mhm.
I was at work. I actually made the mistake of sitting down at my desk to talk to the officer instead of walking outside. So
Yeah.
I worked at that spot for an additional year and a half after that happened, and so I'd go and sit in that spot every day for a year and a half.
Hmm.
So that was not easy. That was not easy at all.
So how long was his addiction journey?
It started when he was 14 years old.
And he
She got
passed away
him
at what age?
29.
Okay, so he had a 15-year journey. Yeah.
It started with pills. It started with OxyContin, hydrocodone, Neurontin, and all manner of other things. And I'm pretty certain he was using other drugs on top of that too.
Now, is he
Um,
prescribed anything? Because like when our son started his journey, it was Strattera in I think 5th or 6th grade, and then it was Adderall when he was 16, and that started everything.
no, his mother was a pill addict.
Oh, so
Um,
she started him just on the pleasure side, not for prescription side, just
right.
to
Well, she
okay.
she got she got addicted to them. So she and I split, and she'd had a car accident, and she had something happen with her back. And
Mhm.
so the problem was is she got addicted to pills at that point in time, but I didn't know it because we weren't together. And that's a
Right.
whole nother story I don't even want to get into.
Sure.
Um,
Yep. I
but
understand. Yep.
right. So the problem was is that I let him go stay with her. I got
Mhm.
custody of my kids in 1999. She had went to prison. So I got emergency
Yeah.
custody of them, and because of the pills, she had went
Yeah.
to prison. So I got Brock when he was 9, is my daughter Marissa when she was 5, and my youngest when she was 10 months old.
Okay.
So I'm raising them. I'm in the car business. I have to get sitters and all kinds of craziness. I
Mhm.
actually had to stay with my dad for a little while because I didn't have, it's a whole another long story. But at the end of the day, we had moved to Milford, Ohio, my current wife and I, and Brock and I got into it over something. I was a pretty strict parent back then,
Mhm.
and so to save both problems between he and I said, "I'm gonna let you go stay with your mother and your grandfather." Well, that was the biggest mistake I could have ever made. I should have just kept him with me.
Mm.
He went up there and stayed, and that's when he got hooked on the pills. That's She was having him run drugs for her and do all kinds
Jeez.
of stuff. And I
Wow.
didn't find out about that until after she went back to jail and his grandfather died. So he had to come back and live with me. And I went back and got him, and he shared that with Julie and I, my current wife.
Mhm.
We've been married almost 16 years. Um, he shared that with her and I. So that's how we found out that he had gotten hooked on pills. But I don't know how he hid it through school and through all those different things. I don't know if he was going to friends' houses and staying and doing it, and we didn't catch it, because I'm not certain how he was doing it and getting away with it, or maybe we
Mhm.
were just turning a blind eye. I don't know. But we really couldn't figure out how he was actually um, having problems with pills. And I even found out even more after. So he overdosed back in 2012 and almost
Oh,
died
okay.
then.
Okay.
And his girlfriend shared with me that he had lived with us when he graduated from high school. He had taken his graduation money and just bolted out of his graduation party. And we couldn't quite understand why he'd given us some excuse. Well, while he's in the hospital, his girlfriend at the time was sitting there with me, and she shared with me that he took all of his graduation money and went and bought drugs,
Yeah. Yeah.
and had, so he struggled with pills. He was struggling with pills even in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
How's
it's
your other two kids? They've adjusted okay with this, or how's that affected them?
oh,
Tough topic.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're dealing with it in their own way. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Marissa is says that she's a medium and that she talks to the dead. So
Hmm.
that didn't really come out until after Brock passed.
Okay.
I told her, well, I believe you're talking to something, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
we'll just leave it at that. And then
Right.
Maddie was a reader. So she has an addictive personality, but her addiction is to reading.
Hmm.
I could carry the camera into her former room right now, and she's got a closet full of books in there, in
Hmm.
boxes. So
Wow.
but she's um, so Marissa lives in Columbus, Ohio, and she's moved out of the country and then moved back to the country a couple different times. And then Maddie lives in Virginia. She went down there to be a nanny, and then
Hmm.
she's
Okay.
elected to stay down there. So, but they're dealing with it in their own way,
So how are you dealing with it?
through God,
Okay.
through God. He's helped me. So the crazy part of it is so when Brock first passed, um, I didn't I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know obviously what was how I was going to deal with it. And then basically what happened is I just get up every morning. I'd pray. There's mornings I didn't want to get up. There's mornings I didn't want to do anything.
Right.
Um, I would curl up in a ball and cry on my wife's chest, and then I had something inside of me was just prodding me. Okay, you got to get up. You got to go.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do this. And I did that for about 8 months in a deep dark hole. Was in a massive depression. I did go and seek counseling about 3 months afterwards. So
Okay.
I've seen a counselor, and I'm not ashamed to say that
Oh,
if
sure.
somebody
Yep.
needs counseling, I
Right.
strongly encourage they get it.
Right.
Whether it be Christian counseling or not Christian counseling, I would encourage Christian counseling, um, but I would strongly encourage they get some sort of counseling,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to have a hard time doing this on your own.
Right.
You need somebody to talk to about it that's outside, that's on the outside looking in, that's not right there. But so I got the counseling help, and I actually have a session tomorrow. Um,
Hmm.
but so I got to December, and I'd been stuck in a hole, been stuck in that dark place. And finally God said to me, he said, you need to figure out a way to get through this, to get out of this. You've got to do something different. What you're doing isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with a phrase. It was called focus forward. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I put a hashtag in front of it. It's hashtag focus forward. And what it is we focus forward on what's in front of us and what God has for us, and not long back over our shoulder, what's behind us, what we've lost, or what we might have left behind. And the reason being is because your son, my son, doesn't want us to be stuck in that moment of death.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the, I know it's a finality for them, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really not. And it's not, and we can't be a finality for us. We have to
Right.
keep them alive. We have to keep their memory alive. We have to help others not get stuck in that moment. Because the problem is when you get stuck in the moment, now it becomes a groove, that becomes a rut, that becomes a grave. You talked about it yourself. It's usually a
Yeah.
death sentence for people. They get
Yep.
stuck and they don't want to move. They don't want to function. They don't want to. They're reliving that moment over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm not saying to forget about it.
Right.
I'm not saying not to think about it. I'm saying that you have to move forward one step at a time into
Why do you
what's
think?
in front of you.
Why do you think so many people have this? Have a inability to find ways to move forward, or as I like to say, evolve ourselves. Adapt and change, evolve, whatever. But it's like, why do you think so many people have barriers to be able to do this? I mean, I have my own thoughts, but I wanted to see what you thought.
I think because it's such a loss. There's
Mm-hmm.
you know losing a parent is expected.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to lose your spouse. It's not something that you want to do, obviously, and it's not something
Yeah.
that you look for, but it's more of a I don't want to say expected loss, but it's more of a loss that makes more sense.
Yeah. Yep. The math
Uh,
works out that way. Yeah.
right, but with children,
Yeah.
parents aren't supposed to bury children.
Right.
It's not a mathematical. It doesn't the equation doesn't make sense. We're
Right.
not. They're supposed to bury us. We're not supposed to bury them.
Right.
And I think that's what happens is people get stuck and crippled in that moment of that losing that child, and it's very, very difficult to get out of. I can tell you right now, if I was the same person I was 12 years ago, I'd be stuck in a bottle.
Yeah.
um,
Me too. Yep.
if I was that same person, 12 years ago or 13 years ago, I would have crawled into a bottle and nobody would have ever found me, and I'd probably either be dead or in jail.
Yeah.
And
Everything you're saying makes complete sense. And what the amazing thing about this podcast and about the Living Undeterred project that we're on, everyone's got such diverse experiences and different ways how to handle all these things. And I think there's something to me that's kind of coming to the forefront. And I asked you that question about why do you think so many people have this inability to handle? And I've come up with these things. I call them the living undeterred mindset. And there's three of them. But the first one is what we're talking about a little bit, and that's expectations. And take death, for example. I mean, this is the easiest one to give an example to because, I can't predict if you're going to quit drinking. Well, I can't predict if you're going to do drugs. I can't predict if you're going to get divorced, but I can predict you're going to die.
right,
That's pretty certain. I don't need a meteorologist to tell me that. Yet, when death presents itself to us, we just seem like it shouldn't happen, or it can't happen, or why does it happen, like we're being punished by somebody. And I think this inability for us to have a healthy relationship with death is what's holding back society in general. And I'm really, really puzzled on how some societies even look at death as they embrace it. They celebrate it.
right,
And we're so accustomed at a young age. I remember all the funerals I went to when I was a child. It was like dreary days and sad and crying and black outfits. And it's just like, no wonder people are so stuck in this, is that it's just presented that way, that's how death is. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think we have to accept that. I don't think we have to look at death as anything other than death. And I think what I'm trying to do is find people that are kind of breaking this mold, not just death, but in how we do everything. The process of grief is just, I think it should be challenged. I really do. I think the 5 stages of death is antiquated. I studied Kubler-Ross back in college, and I think it's great, but it doesn't mean we have to live that way. And so I haven't had you answer the question yet because I'm kind of setting you up here. But so going back to expectations, that to me is like the big problem I think we have. So I guess, do you have any thoughts, or I know you're a big strong man of faith, and so I'm sure for you a lot of what
yes.
expectations are is because it's God's way. And so but have you always thought that way? Is that something that's always been kind of your answer to these things, or did you ever have a situation in your life where you've questioned a lot of things and that was kind of what you came up with?
Well, so it's funny that you asked me that question because you know, I had fallen away from God for about 20 years. So, and
Okay.
when I said 13 years ago, or however long ago it was, um, I just rededicated my heart back to Christ back in 2010. So it's been about
Okay.
12 years ago. So
Okay.
I mean, sure, there was a lot of times, before that, I would question a lot of things. My little brother was paralyzed from the waist down
Mm.
back in 2001 from a skiing accident.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, I'm sitting there I'm sitting in the bar getting drunk,
Of course. Yeah.
of course, because that's what I
Yeah.
did back then.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
and and I get the phone call from my dad. I was dating the girl that owned the bar at the time, and I get the phone call from my dad. Says, "Hey, by the way, don't come up here, because I don't want to have to deal with you with him, with his back broken." And
Mm.
so I'm sitting there ticked at God because I'm going, "Why wasn't it me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why wasn't it me?" Well, I
Right.
know why it wasn't me because I was way more outgoing and way more. he was mentally better suited for this to happen. I'm not saying it was God's will for that to happen by any
Understood.
stretch of
Yep.
the imagination, but
Right.
he mentally he was better suited to be able to deal with it, and he struggles with it. I mean, he's 30. Oh goodness, he's 37 years old.
And he's paralyzed.
He's paralyzed from the waist down.
Wow.
He's been in a wheelchair ever since.
Wow.
Believe it or not, it was a senior trip, skip day trip. It was one of those planned ones. Because back in the
Wow.
day when we did it, it was it wasn't
Not
planned.
not
But they
planned. No.
right, but
We had
so
so we
they
had skip weeks back in the day.
right. But so they planned it. They went up to a ski resort here in Ohio, and and he was on the last run before lunch, and he fell and slid into one of the poles for the ski lift, and
Mm.
they didn't have any hay bales around it. He slid into it backwards, and it bent him in half and broke his back.
Oh man.
And so
Jeez.
so Dad's up there trying to deal with him in the hospital, and my girlfriend's mad at me because she's like, "Why aren't you going up there?" And I said, "Because my dad asked me not to come.
Right.
I respect my father's wishes, and he said not to come, so I didn't go." So to give you a long answer to a short question, there's been plenty of times where I was mad at God. There's been plenty of
Mm-hmm.
times where, but obviously I don't believe that, Brock's death was the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned earlier, I'm a strong, God's given me a strong faith in him.
Mm-hmm.
I believe what his word says. Brock gave his heart to Christ in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually on January 20th of 2013. And so I believe he's in heaven. I believe
Mm-hmm.
that, that I'm going to see him again. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that helps me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I respect other people's beliefs. This is what I believe. This is what
Mm-hmm.
the Bible tells me it says. I respect other people's beliefs. They may not necessarily agree with me, and that's okay.
Right. I know it's amazing because I've got, I'm 56 years old. It's like, had so many really deep, I love conversations like that when you really get deep and, some people get either defensive or argumentative. And then other people are like, I'm willing to learn and I respect your thoughts. And so it's like this whole, I had a lady one time after Seth died. I met her on Facebook and she seemed really nice. And then it wasn't very long where I was in a Zoom meeting with her friend, a medium, and they were like, "You want to talk to Seth, right?" And I'm like, "Huh?" So I basically I was tricked,
Right.
and I was lured in, thinking I was, developing a new connection in this mental health space, and I was really kind of put back that there's people that prey on people that are, so of course I didn't take that. And you mentioned your daughter was a medium, right? My brother's a ghost hunter.
Okay.
He runs Cedar Rapids Paranormal here in Cedar Rapids, but he comes from a skeptic lens. So he's out there trying to debunk things and help families understand,
Sure.
give some closure. And it's interesting to talk about these things because at the end of the day, I mean, does it really matter? Does it really matter anything other than how you behave as a good human? I mean, you could believe one thing, I could believe one, someone else could believe another. But if you just are a good person and you're honest and you're helping other people and you're having an enjoyable life, why does it really matter? I think we get so caught up. We get so caught up on people's belief structures, even politically. It's like, why don't we just go off behavior? I watch what you're doing. Your belief structure is admirable. I love it, but I like your behavior. I like what you're doing. I know so many people that, well, matter of fact, the most disruptive relationship I had was 2 weeks ago. A good friend of mine, I won't get into details, but shocking betrayal, shocking injustice to me. And he's one of the strongest um, Catholic people I know. And I was just set back. I was asking myself, if that's supposed to teach you, forgiveness and do unto others and all that. And I'm like, so there's an example where somebody that kind of acts like he is one way, but then his actions don't determine it. So on this journey I'm on, I've got this hodgepodge, this collection of great humans, and I don't really care what they believe. I just, I'm excited about your story. The next person I have on, they'll have a story. You're
Right.
doing good things for humanity. You're helping yourself. You're honoring Brock, and that's the beauty of all this journey. And so I go back to your relationship with death, it's like, I think personally, I want to know your opinion on this, is, there's a tremendous utility in believing in a lot of things like the afterlife and things like that. Yet it's difficult for me to get in conversations when people get really pushy in that area, and I've noticed some people on Facebook that I don't know, just to me it gets a little toxic when they get over, but it's no different than any organization that's on the other end that's they're toxic as well. I mean,
Sure.
how do you stay kind of neutral? Um, or maybe that's not the objective. Maybe the objective is, to get people to feel better. You believe or somebody believes in something, so they're trying to get that idea out. But because we're such a cancel culture today, it's like you voice an opinion on something today, it's like, man, you just get shot down. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know where there's a question in that. It's more of a comment.
Well, honestly, I try to share what I believe and what's
Mm-hmm.
helped me and
Right.
what's worked for me.
Right.
And if somebody can take that and, because, I believe Jesus Christ was the son of God, and I believe that God is, who he says he is. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, and I believe that very strongly. But I'm not going to jam it down somebody's throat. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to force them. Well, you got to believe this way.
Sure.
I want them to see that through me. Am I
Show your
perfect?
actions, right? Your actions,
Am I
right?
perfect? Not even close. Do I make
Yeah.
mistakes? Absolutely. Do I get angry? Do I get upset? Do I act like an idiot sometimes? Do I say things out of the way? Absolutely. I'm
Right.
not sitting here trying to say that I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Do I believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God? Absolutely. Do I believe he died for my sins? Most definitely.
Yeah.
Is that what I believe? Yes, very much so. And I will scream it from the mountaintops. And the thing of it is people have to understand that that's what I believe. And if you
Mm-hmm.
choose to believe that with me, then that's awesome. And that's gonna save you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the way it is. If you choose not to believe that, then that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's up to you. You
It's
have
the
that
control
choice.
control things you can control, right? You can't
I
control what
can't
other people
control what other
believe.
people do.
Right.
I can share what I believe, and I can share it with you, and I can share it with other people. And that's what I do. I have a morning show that I do 3 times a week, Monday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, and Friday. It's called The Morning Word with Will. I get
Mm-hmm.
on there and I talk about relevant things that are happening in the world today, and how I believe the Bible goes along with those things, and what people deal with. And I've talked about my struggles with fear, my struggles with anxiety, one of the big things. And I'm going to ask you a question,
Sure.
because you've been on this journey longer than I have.
Yeah.
And so, was anxiety something that you dealt with strongly when Seth passed? Was that something that hit you?
Hmm. Um,
Do you remember?
I do. I'm trying to define anxiety in my mind before I answer. Because I think everybody probably has their own subjective definition of it. I think I battled primarily, like you probably did too. Maybe you didn't, but I know I did. Is guilt. I battled that I let him down. Like on my watch, I didn't let him die. He put the needle in his arm. I wasn't
Right.
there when I would have talked him out of it had I been there.
Sure.
And most of the decisions he's made, I was against. I mean, I told him one time, I said, all I am, Seth, at this point is I'm a fire chief. I just put out fires. It's all I do.
Right.
I pay your bills and put out fires. And that's how our relationship kind of fell apart. But then when he got out of prison, boy, he was looking great. And, just met a girl that was into heroin. And I really thought rock bottom was prison. I didn't think rock bottom was death.
Right.
And 60 days out, he was dead. But back to your question about, anxiety. I've never really had anxiety, just like I've never had depression, but I get nervous. I get sad, but I anxiety. I don't think I struggled with that. I would say I'm impatient. I especially with the projects we're doing. I like, what can I do next to honor Seth and my
Right.
wife? What can I do next? And it's like I don't have an off button, and people in my bubble drives them crazy. But again, wouldn't you rather the Will be that person or be somebody that can't get motivated or has struggles with ideas and creativity, or would you rather be somebody that has too many projects going that they don't know where to go? I
I'd
don't know.
rather be somebody that has too many projects going, don't know where to go, which is
Yeah. So
exactly where I'm at right now. So,
turn it back to anxiety with you, it's like, how did you cope with. You don't drink, so obviously, you
No,
can't cope drinking, and you don't do drugs, and I don't either. And it's
nope.
like, how'd you cope with your anxiety then?
Well, so it's something that so part of my grief journey and part of the things that I've been dealing with is so it'll hit me out of nowhere. A lot of times, so Brock died on a Tuesday.
Okay.
Um, so Mondays and Tuesdays can be very difficult for me. Um, and don't ask me why. I think it's a PTSD thing,
Yeah, I'm
and
sure it is.
and
Yep.
so I'd wake up. So it would start Sunday night. The way when he first passed, this is part of the journey. When he first passed, um, Sunday nights into Mondays into Tuesday were terrible. I mean, it's
I
just
bet.
awful. I mean, it was just, at one point, there was been a couple of times early on. At one point, I'm like, you know, doing one of
Mhm.
these in a corner of my couch, kind of curled up in a little bit of a ball.
Mhm.
My wife's kind of asking me, "What's going on with you?" And I said, "I have no idea. I don't know." So that was my posture. And in
Mm.
the mornings, I'd wake up on a Monday or a Tuesday, and I'd be curled up in a ball, crying in the bed. And she'd have to sit there and hold me for 30 minutes while I bawl like a baby. And so, I mean, you asked me how I got through that. Prayer, um,
Mhm.
just a lot of asking God to help me,
Yeah.
um, doing counseling. Honestly, there it is. One of the things that I've done, and it's part of, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. Sorry.
That's
Uh,
okay.
it's called First Focus. It's a journal that my wife and I made.
Oh,
Um,
great.
so I get up in the mornings, I read my Bible, and then I literally will just write down whatever's on my mind in this journal.
Do
And
you, do
I've
you ever
got
let anyone? Does your wife get to read that, or do you read your own journal?
I've got ones back here behind me on the shelf that I started. I was doing it intermittently before Brock passed,
Yeah.
but once he passed, it's daily. It's just been
It's
daily.
interesting you say this. You're like the fourth person now that's brought up journaling, and all in the last like 9 podcasts. And actually, 2 people have already sent me journals. One guy,
Give
I
me an
was on his pod.
address. I'll get you
I was on
one.
his I was on his podcast, and he sent me. It's called Wartime Leadership, and the guy's in the Air Force, and he sent me
Nice.
his journal. And but it's interesting because I think there is something to journaling, and I don't journal, but I write. I write. I'm working on my next book. I've on the
Nice.
tour. I'm be writing a lot on the tour through the interviews. So that's kind of journaling. But I've always been wondering if you do a journal, is the intent to like never look at it, you know? And I will tell you, a friend of mine said that he has journals that he has a lot of stuff in there, and he put them away. And I said, have you ever thought about what happens when you die? Because I found my wife's journals when she died.
Oh my.
I read them. She's gone, so it's like
Right.
it's not like I found my son's diary,
Right.
I mean my living son's diary.
Right.
My wife's not here, so I can't judge her. I can't do anything. I mean, and I was quite shocked in some of the things that were in there that she had said some things about our marriage early on that obviously I wasn't aware of, that she wasn't happy with, things that as a man it was kind of surprising. And so I asked people who journal, are you prepared if you were to die, if your children found that journal? I guarantee you they'll read it. I can't imagine, if you found your dad's journal, you'd read it. I mean,
Right.
that's anyone that says they wouldn't is lying to you.
Sure.
Um, so I guess I always ask the question: are you putting stuff in the journal that you don't want somebody to read? And if you did that, do you have it in a safe place that can be like, destroyed when you die or something?
No, I really honestly everything that I put in the journal is usually what I'm feeling in the moment. Um,
Right. Not
and
your deepest, darkest secrets.
no, I'm not.
Couldn't do that either.
I'm writing what's on my heart at the moment and what I'm
Sure.
dealing with. Whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety, whether it's you
It's
know
heavy stuff, but it's not like,
right. It's
legacy defining things and ruin your whole family.
no, no. That's not. I wouldn't know.
Well, I don't know how I got off on that, but you're like the fourth person that's brought up journaling, and I'm like, well, I mean,
Sure.
I keep asking that question, but well, so journaling is a good coping mechanism. Obviously, for you, it's worked. And I think for people that are starting to follow you, because like me, I started off not knowing where this would go, and now you're starting to get a little bit of a following. You're on
Sure.
podcasts now,
Sure.
and so there's going to be this level of respect you'll start getting in kind of the podcast world. And again, I just think I'm really excited to see how new people to this club, you are dealing with this, because I just had a lady on this morning before you who she's been dealing with this now for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And she would say to me, well, yeah, never. So she would say to me, Jeff, you're new to the club. And I'm 6 years. So I can say to you, you're a baby, you're an
Right.
infant in the club. I mean, and I say that, hopefully, I'm saying it
Respectfully.
we
Absolutely.
have to have the ability to laugh and cry and
Right.
learn. And it's like I feel sometimes that there's people that are in this position that you have to dance around so you don't, you can't trigger me. I tell somebody one time, I'm untriggerable. You can't trigger me.
The
It's like,
funny thing about me is that I don't, so if I'm talking to somebody that's in our club,
yeah,
if I don't pull any punches
good.
because in my view, there's no
Yeah.
punches that need to be pulled. The
Right. Because
punches
we've heard the
we've already,
worst.
well, we've already been hit with it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, so, and so, like, in my opinion, you've got street cred. I've got street
Mm-hmm.
cred.
Right.
Whoever's
Right.
lost a child has got street cred. And the other thing is that you've already been kicked in the teeth. So I can't
Mm-hmm.
kick you in the teeth any worse than what you've already been kicked. So, I mean, it's somebody that's not in our club. I had somebody look at me one time and said it was 10 days after Brock died and asked me when I was going to be over it.
Oh, geez. Talk about a naive question. Holy cow.
Buddy,
When are you going to be over it?
when are you
Hey,
going to be over it?
I don't want to ask what happened next. So
Actually, not what you think, believe it or not.
years ago would have probably, right?
13
let
years
me
ago, it had been whooped.
let me ask you this question, because I now that we're in this thing, it's like people really, like, I remember when I came to the office the first time, is that no one gave me eye contact.
Right.
And even today, there's people that have a
Yep.
hard time, saying
Yep.
his name, Seth.
Yep.
And it's like,
Yep.
I people don't know a lot of this, that I keep, back here on this thing, I keep the belt they found on his bed. That was his tourniquet. I keep that next to me, and I'm not afraid of that. That's why I said,
Sure.
nothing triggers me. And, like I said, going back to looking at coping mechanisms and all these things you and I are kind of talking about, I think one stigma that you and I can break, and all the other parents out there and brothers and sisters that have lost people, is that it's okay to look us in the eye. We're not vampires. It's okay to walk up and say, I'm sorry to hear about Seth. It's okay to reach out and hug me. It's okay to walk away too and not say anything.
Right.
But I think there's this stigma that you and I and everybody else in this group is just so sensitive, and that we can't handle it. You know what? You can't do anything or say anything to make you and I feel worse than we did on that day.
Right.
It's not possible.
No,
it's not possible.
Absolutely not.
So everybody out there knows somebody that's lost a loved one, just give them compassion.
Right.
Let them know how you feel. And the old saying, I'm sorry for your loss. That's great. But how about, I'm sorry for your loss? What can I do to help? That's kind of what I've been saying now when somebody posts something on social media and I say, everyone's like, sorry to hear. I'm like, sorry for your loss. What can I do to help?
Right.
Right. I mean, that's a proactive way to take a really bad event. And most people are going to say, nothing. I'm fine. But, maybe somebody one time says, yeah, you could let my dogs out when I'm at the hospital or something, and
sure.
But this whole thing's a learning experience. And
it's funny that you said that, and I don't mean to interrupt. It's funny that you said
feel
that,
free.
But I was on a golf course Sunday, and I'm out there, and I have tattoos all up and down my arm, and it's because of Brock. Brock had tattoos, and
sure,
and I had a couple before Brock passed, and I just made up my mind that I was going to get tattoos of what he had and things that he liked, and that was going to be my way of honoring him. So my whole right arm, I have a sleeve that goes all the way up to my shoulder, and it's
cool.
all the way around the back, and it's different things that Brock loved and or he had. And so I'm out playing golf on Sunday, and they paired me with, or they put me with 3 other guys, and a couple of them were a little bit older, and so we get to like the third hole, and all of a sudden the guy goes, "So Will," I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Your tattoos. So what are those about? What? How long did that take?" He didn't
Yeah.
expect the answer that he got. And I said, "Well," I said, "So I lost my son 27 months ago, or
And then
26."
boom, you could just hear it
And
all.
and he's
Yep.
like, "I'm sorry." And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "These are everything that he loved. Like
Right.
I have a big taco on my arm. Brock loved tacos. He posts about them every day.
Oh,
So, and
cool.
has a little banner. It says Brock's Taco." Um,
Right.
but so the guy's like, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah." I said, I said, "This is all," and I kind of told him a little bit about some of them, and I could tell the more I told him, the more uncomfortable he got, and
Yeah.
but it was just funny to watch. He didn't speak to me. I bet he didn't say 2 more words to me the rest of the round after I
Wonder
said
why.
that,
Wonder why.
because it's like what you talked about. People get uncomfortable.
He
They
couldn't
they
relate to you.
they all of a sudden, they have children, and they can't, and I don't want them to imagine what it would be like to lose their child. And I
Yeah,
tell people that,
absolutely.
they're like, "I can't imagine." I say, "Don't."
Right.
But at that point, it's like, okay, he's lost a child. I haven't. What how can I even relate to this guy and what he's going through? So they just shut down. And it's like you were talking about a little bit ago, they just shut down. And it's like,
Yeah.
guys, if you would just, "Hey, what's his name?
Yeah.
I'm
How
sorry
old
that
how
you
old
lost
was
him.
he?
How old
Yeah.
was he?" Just
Yep.
talk about it, because I don't mind talking about it.
Well, you
You
wouldn't
know,
have put the damn tattoo on your arm if you didn't want to talk
right,
about it,
right.
right? I mean,
So I
yeah.
mean, I don't mind talking about it. It
Right.
helps me to talk about it. It
Yeah.
helps me to tell the story. If you want
Right.
to know the story, I have no issues. If you want to hear the story, I have no problems telling you about it. And I want to tell people about it. The reason I want to tell people about it, I'm writing a book. I'm writing my
Yeah.
first book,
Yeah.
and I'm telling the story.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a public speaker because I want to tell
Mhm.
the story,
Right.
and I want people to understand that, just because Brock's no longer here. My wife had my wife is his stepmother, and she had
Okay.
a
Yeah.
perspective. She says, "Well, I don't really like talking about it because it's the end." And it's like, I looked at her and I said, "Well, no, it's not the end. You have to
Mm-mm.
change your perspective.
Right.
It's not the end. What it is it's a continuation. And the reason being is because his story is going to help somebody else not do what he did.
100%. Yep.
If
Yep.
I can get somebody to understand that there's
Right.
hope, and even though Brock's ended in death, that doesn't mean that the next person's has to end in death, or the
Yeah.
next person. And that's the reason you're telling Seth's story.
And
And
that's why we
it's
do what we do. That's why we do what we
absolutely
do. I mean,
100%.
yeah, and I think the lesson is if I was watching this podcast, listening to you and me talk right now, and all my kids are alive and my wife's alive and I'm watching this, I think a couple things I've taken from this. One is gratitude. I'm gonna look at my kids that are here and say, wow,
We hug him.
Will can't hug Brock right now,
No.
and Jeff can't hug Seth.
Right.
And I can hug my kids.
Right.
So I got a pretty good day going for me,
Yes, sir.
and then so that gratitude I think is key. And then also I think people watching you and I and all the other people that are in this unfortunate club that we're in that we mentioned is that it's okay to be that guy on the golf course and to say, "Hey, Will, what's the tattoos for? I think they're pretty cool. You tell me the story, and I can follow up with questions. Really, how old is Brock? Wow, that's a great way to tribute him. What's the taco mean? What's the significant? Just and then all of a sudden now you're not even playing golf. You're talking to another human. And
Right.
I think if we all become more vulnerable and we all learn to let our guard down like that, I think we really can start improving mental health in this country. I'm convinced that connectivity and vulnerability are like the two superpowers we can have. And you and I have a story to tell, and we have a platform to do it because we're both comfortable in speaking and so forth.
Right.
And there's so many other Wills and Jeffs out there, moms and dads and brothers and sisters and grandpas that are doing podcasts and doing charity events. And it's like, we need to all connect. We need to all get together. And I was telling Jennifer this the other night, my last guest. I had a media person ask us about the tour, radio station called us in. They said, "Oh, I heard about your tour. It's really cool." And they said, "I got to ask you a couple questions." She said, "First of all, what problem are you trying to solve? And why are you doing the tour?" Okay, now, Will, if you haven't found out, you will find out. There are some really ridiculous questions you're going to get asked, and they're unanswerable questions, and I call them trap questions.
Right.
Because if someone says, "Did you vote for Trump?" That's a trap question
You think?
because you can't answer it. You can't answer it.
Right.
Do you think Biden's an idiot? Well, you can't answer it. And so there's just so many questions that are trap questions that I don't fall to anymore. And so when this media person asked me that question, what problem are you trying to solve? My answer, I really had to think about this because I think this is an important way for you to maybe look at answering these questions. Here's my answer. If what we were doing was working, I wouldn't be doing the tour.
Amen.
That's it. So
Agreed.
what problem are you trying to solve? If what we were doing was working, I wouldn't be doing the tour. So, hey, Will, why are you doing public speaking? If what we were doing was working, I wouldn't be doing so. And that turned out to me to be kind of this aha moment that I had that I thought, that's a portable answer. You could plug that in most
Absolutely.
questions. And now that's going to be kind of my staple answer that I use on our tour when I'm speaking. Yeah, you can too. I don't
I'm stealing
can't
it.
you can't. I mean, I'm sharing everything. I'm trying to, as you are trying. We're trying to save lives. But I
Absolutely.
like that because the media is going to ask us really dumb questions, or not dumb, but naive questions.
Right.
Well, what do you think? What do you think about? How do you feel about losing your son? It's like, man, of all the questions you could have picked, come on,
What? Well,
really?
how do you
I
think I feel?
mean, exactly. And I can't be an ass about it. I got to say, well,
What's
it ripped my
What's
guts out,
funny?
and
So here,
you know,
here, let me show you this one. I'm sure you've seen it. I don't know if you can see it in the camera or
I
not.
can't see it too well, but yeah,
See,
explain it.
so that is a statue that was on Facebook of a parent that's lost a child,
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
and I'm sure you've seen
Yep.
that.
Yeah, I have.
And so you want to know how I feel? Look at that
Yeah.
statue.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
6'2", 225-pound hole in the middle of my chest, and it's named Brock. That's
And
how I feel.
how do you explain that? That's where just I think again a learning lesson here. People just need
Sure,
to be a little more observant, a little more
sure.
careful to ask questions and not be so ridiculous and offensive. It's like I was in a group of people the other day, and somebody said that someone had taken their own lives, and guess what? The first stupid question: how'd they do it? It's like, are you? Am I on the same planet? You're gonna ask,
Wow.
Fortunately, none of the relatives were in the group, but it was like four of us standing there. Hey, did you hear this kid took his own life? Really? Wow, that's terrible. How'd he do it? I turn to the guy and I go, really? That's the first question that pops into your head?
Who cares?
Anyway, I just marvel at some of the way we have to go as society to get better, to become better humans, and part of it's
Absolutely.
just being a better listener,
Yes.
ask better questions,
Agreed.
being really sensitive. And I don't know, you'll find this out too, Will, and it's so addictive to tell Brock's story. But as I go further down this road now, especially literally going down the road, kind of the less I talk about my story and the more I talk about Brock and other dads and moms' kids, it's actually giving me more energy. I'm pulling in from your story because mine can be a little nauseating after a while. And who wants to talk about their own story all the time?
Right.
But if I can, hear about Brock, see the tattoo, that's all new, fresh data going into my brain that's giving me more energy for my day. So again, going back to vulnerability, it's like I really think that you and I and all the other people out there that are struggling with their personal challenges share, talk. That's what your church groups do. I'm sure they get very heavy
Absolutely.
into that. Yeah, I mean, AA meetings, that's based on that. That's the tenet is AA sharing. Hey, I'm Jeff, I'm an alcoholic. And you
Right.
right there immediately, right there, you're naked.
Right.
In front of the group, and I think there's something to this that I want to hear about your book too before we get off the show here. But in your book, I'm sure you're going to be just very vulnerable and you're going to find it therapeutic. Because I'm on my second book, and the first one took me, I don't know, a year and a half, and it was very hard to do. There was times I shut it down for 2 months. I didn't look. I
Right.
just couldn't. I'd be up 24 hours in a row, then I wouldn't look at it for a month. And I'm sure you're going through all those.
I just started, believe it or not, I just started it last week. It's a journey through darkness.
Yeah.
Is the name of the book. It's a journey through darkness, um, learning from the loss of a son
Mm-hmm.
is the name of it. And
You just started it.
I literally just started it. I have the introduction, the chapters mapped out, and I've got the first chapter just about done.
Well, I'm going to
Um,
send you a copy of my book because I, again, started off on the same idea. Yours will be kind of a memoir, I'm guessing. It'll be about the relationship and kind of what's transpired. And I read a couple books before I started mine. One is a good book. I would really recommend you getting on Amazon and reading. It's by Steve Grant.
okay,
It's called Don't Forget Me.
okay.
Steve lost his only two sons to overdose.
Oh my gosh,
5 years apart.
both.
Chris and Kelly, only two. So the Grant last name ended with the last son.
Mm.
And
Oh my
and he
goodness.
started the Chris and Kelly Hope Foundation in South Carolina. He's raised $1 million in his foundation. He's a nationally renowned, but this happened 20 years ago, Will, before any of these.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. He goes, the only person I knew that lost somebody was me. I didn't have a group. I didn't have a podcast. I didn't have anybody the internet was barely, all this
Right.
conversation wasn't here. You and I have immediate families we can add. I add you to my family now. Steve didn't have that.
Right.
So I met Steve. I called him when I was writing my book. I sent him my manuscript. I had him and he gave me a lot of really good pointers about things not telling me what to do, but stories I could articulate more on, and really help the listener or the reader. But I'd recommend, again, maybe you've done this, but pick out a few books like that and really read them. And uh, it helped me a lot to talk to some dads and moms that have actually been through this,
Yes.
But I'd be certainly happy to send you. That's my book there, and that's my
Please.
son. So this one's for you, an inspirational journey through addiction, death, and meeting. So I wanted to put the word inspirational in there because I didn't want this to be something that was, I wanted people to put the book down and say, damn, I'm going to start a nonprofit today. That's what I wanted to do. And I think the last couple chapters are just extremely uplifting, and
Good.
I'm sure yours will be too.
And that's the
And
plan. I didn't want I want people to know how to navigate this loss. I mean,
mhm,
that's really what this is about. It's not about necessarily. I want them to know about addiction, and I want to know, the big thing about, you know, City Recovery, that is the name of the group that we have at our church. The name of
mhm,
the church is Engage City Church, so it's called City Recovery. And one of the big things is, I'm a overseer for the group. I have a little bit too much on my plate, so I didn't want to be, because I would have to be there every week
right,
if I was involved in it every week, and I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to be an overseer for it. And so one of the guys that started it called me and he said, "So what to you is one of the most important things about this group?" And I said, "Well," I said, "before anything else, I said, we need to make sure that these people understand that they're not a project, that sobriety is a means to an end, that they are important.
mhm,
They have to know that they are important,
mhm,
that they're a soul, that they're not a project, they're not a work
mhm,
something we're working on." Because that I don't think, one of the things that's always struck me is Brock never felt like he was important.
hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I can
I
see
think a
that.
lot of addicts don't feel like they're important.
Right.
That people are more worried about them getting sober than they are worried about them.
Hmm.
And one of the things I used to tell Brock is, "Look, buddy, I love you no matter what, and all I care about is you.
Mhm,
I want you to be sober, but the problem is that I can't care about your sobriety. You have to. All
mhm,
I care about is you.
mhm,
I care about your health and I care about you. You've got to want your sobriety. You have to want to be sober. I can't do it for you. All I care about is you. I love you and you're important to me." And that's what I told him. I said, "You have to make sure that these people know that they are important." And that's what addicts have to know. is that they are important. They're not a they're not a dirty addict.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, somebody that's nasty. That's
Mm-hmm.
somebody's daughter. That's somebody's son. That's somebody's father. That's somebody's mother.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that, because I was on, I think it was Facebook a year ago, and there was this video some lady took in a Walmart with some mentally ill lady who's just going crazy and stuff, and she's videotaping and they're commenting stuff, and then someone posted and everyone was, "Oh, that's hilarious, LOL." And I jumped in. I finally I bit my tongue and I jumped in and said, "Hey, listen, that's somebody's mom. That's
Right.
somebody's sister that's mentally ill. And this is one of the effing problems why we have in our society is you people sit here from your glass houses and you're mocking this person. Sure, it is funny. Sure, but you don't have to go on social media and mock them. I
Right.
mean, and this person, I don't know, was on drugs or whatever, but I got so pissed that I normally don't interject myself. And boy, you could see all the people starting to agree with me. Yeah, Jeff, you're right. You're right. And I'm like, okay, but that's one of the problems we have with the way mental health, mental illness is portrayed and
Right.
that's not really mainstream media, would be movies and things. But I mean, even on social media, we make fun. I mean, my son was on, I think it's like TikTok or something. And there was like videos there's like an app where they have like meth addicts in inner cities, like 30 seconds of music playing, like, like disco music or country music. And there's some meth addicts stumbling around. I'm like, this just turns my stomach. I don't know how people could sit there and look at somebody who's having a really bad day, a bad life, and laugh at it. That could have been my effing son. That could have been Brock.
Right.
And that infuriates me. And if I ever caught somebody filming someone like that, I'd probably go to jail.
And I'd probably be right there with you, believe it or not.
That makes me so mad. And that's, we want to stop these things. We have to stop liking and commenting and posting, discriminating videos like that,
People
especially
need
the mentally
help.
ill. They
People need
do.
help.
They don't need mocked.
Right. They need help.
Yeah, but we have a lot of work ahead of us, man. I mean,
we do.
We're just getting started. But okay, so in a couple minutes, tell me about your book. When is it going to be out?
So like I said, it's a journey through darkness.
Okay.
The loss, talking about the loss of a son.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to have it done hopefully in the next 6 to 8 months,
Okay.
if not a little bit sooner. I'm working with a coach right now. He's going to publish it for me. His name is Daniel Gomez. You know Daniel?
I know Daniel very well. He's on the show and he's great.
Yeah, he's awesome. So he's
and
helping.
If you need a testimonial, I'd be happy to add my name to it.
Love it.
A testimonial. Give me a look at it. And I'd be happy to help you market it, promote it. Cause with the tour going on here shortly, we're going to have a pretty big audience that we can collaborate together.
That'd be awesome. I'd love that. Oh, one thing before I talk more about the book.
Yeah.
So there's a few connections with us that we failed to talk about, if you remember. Brock's best friend's name was Seth.
Oh, yeah, that's just eerie as hell. God.
Brock's best friend's name was Seth.
And my business partner's name is Brock.
Right. and you live in Iowa.
Yeah.
And that's where I went to find God again, was Iowa. I worked in Iowa for 4 years
cool.
at Dewey Dodge Chrysler Jeep in Ankeny, Iowa. Lived in Ankeny for almost 5 years. So, and got some friends. I think I've got some friends from Cedar Rapids, believe it or not. I know it's a little bit farther north, but
yeah.
But I spent 4 years out there. Love the people, hate the weather. Just so you know.
I'm untriggerable when it comes to Iowa. I
love the people, hate the weather. I hate the weather. But Julie, I looked at Julie and said, "Hey, what would you think about going back to Iowa?" And she's like, she's doing one of these big-eyed, fast head shakes.
Yeah, I can't see me living. My dad's 90 and my mom died in November. And my dad's, I feel I'm just trying to spend as much time as I can. So absolutely. I think, as long as my dad's here, I'm going to stay here. But when that day comes, my boys are starting their lives and my son's in college. You're going
south, I bet.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a scuba diver. My son and I dive all over the Caribbean. Nice. We've been on 6 trips in the last 2 years. Nice. My youngest son, he's 18. And I want to live on an island, and I've got an island in mind. It's Rotan. It's off the coast of Honduras. I've been there a number of times. It's great diving. It's English language, basically. The dollar's the currency. So And that's what I want to do. And, if I do that, I don't know if I'll just go unplug. I don't know. Part of me says I'd love to do this and do all this, but then part of me is like, I wouldn't mind just unplugging,
Sure.
just,
Sure. I get it.
just wash my hands, walk away, just do what I want to do. And I don't know. I'll see.
Yeah.
I got to get to tomorrow first, right?
Right.
I got to get the tour done first.
Right. Right.
That may be my end right there. I don't know.
You might run yourself into the ground from what you're telling me. Be careful with that, brother.
I told you're like the number of people have warned me, and I
be careful with that.
Literally one a day I forgot to eat the other. I had yogurt and forgot all day to eat. But I told my staff the other day, and I say my staff, there's 5 people on our team, Living Undeterred team. I said, there's no downside here. The only downside is running ourselves into the ground.
Right.
And we got 60 weddings we have to plan, and things are going to go wrong. The brides aren't going to show up. The caterers aren't going to show up. We're going to get flat tires. Live with it. Live undeterred, right?
Right. I saw that you got a motorhome. That's pretty cool. I work in the RV business now, so I
saw that too. I saw one of your posts. You had an RV thing. I got a 34-foot Hurricane Thor, brand new. Just got it fully wrapped. Just picked it up yesterday, and then lo and behold, the slide doesn't go all the way in now. So I had to go to Camping World this morning. They're our national sponsor. I bought it through Camping World. They're
awesome.
A big sponsor for us. But I went up there and dropped it off, and I'm crossing my fingers because they have 7 days to get this slide fixed. And I can't take another RV because this is the only one with a wrap like that. Yeah. So a little bit of pressure on my sales manager up there. So
sure.
Well, listen, Will, I'm going to let you go. You're doing an awesome job in a short amount of time. I'm always a phone call away. If I have a nice group of humans that if I'm on the ledge, which I have been on in 6 years, numerous times I've been on the ledge. Yep. And just recently as Christmas, I had a real serious brush about a month after my mom died. That just all this was just too much. And I had my first brush with suicidal ideation, which I've never had since or before. But so I extend that olive branch offer that if you ever have a problem, issue, want to talk, call me, and I'll take you up on that as well.
Yes, please. You have my number.
Yeah, and good luck with your projects. I'm here to support you. Say hi to Daniel. I think the world of him. He does a great job, Daniel Gomez.
Yes.
Yep. Well, listen, man, how can people reach you? What's the easiest way to reach Will Ramsey?
Well, so my speaking is Will Ramsey Ignites. That's my, I'm Will Ramsey Ignites. That's my brand. So that's the easiest way to reach me. You can get me on Facebook. I haven't gotten my Facebook page started with the brand yet, but you can, I'm sure you can find Will Ramsey on there, and you can see my videos, Morning Word with Will. And then I also have Will Ramsey Ignites, Google My Business or Google My Profile, however you want to say it. I guess they've changed it to Google My Profile now. So Will Ramsey Ignites, Google My Business. I've got that up and running, so you can hop on there and get that as well. And I'm bookable for speaking engagements and that sort of thing. So, I mean, I'd be happy to come talk at somebody's engagement if they'd like. And I'd be more than happy to come out and share the story.
Well, our Ohio stop is going to be in Columbus. So I don't know how far you are from Columbus, but
I'm actually less than an hour. So I would. Yeah, I mean,
I'll give you the date, and we'd love to have you come out and be what we call local advocates. These are people that are part of our stop, but they're not like on the agenda, but they're certainly going to be advocates, and that'd be a great opportunity for you to network. And
absolutely,
I'll extend that to you. It's sometime in June, if I remember right. So, but listen, man, love you like a brother. Keep doing what you're doing, man. All right, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you.